taking an unconventional look at stocks, property, bonds, economics, and more. This is the Total Money Management Podcast with Steve Moriarty, Tom Hill, and Jacob Senior.
Hey guys, welcome back to Total Money Management. I can only just get it off my chest today. Can barely say it. I've had a week off.
Too much jet.
Too much cruise.
Too much cruise.
What was it? Last month was jets, and this month it's big ships.
Well, I'm back. I know you've missed me.
We'll see you on the Garn.
He's probably got a chopper lined up for this afternoon.
Oh, I need a couple of weeks off.
Says someone who's done golfing, rifle ranging. What else have we done this week, Tom? Anything else? Gridiron? Anything?
Mate, just working hard.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Bit of polocrosse.
Oh, yeah. You young people, you would know. Wouldn't happen in my day.
Well, it's good to be back. It's good to be back in the hot seat, and actually I haven't not listened to last week's podcast yet.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I'm a little bit behind, so
the ratings have plummeted.
I know. I'm as keen as anyone else to get back up to scratch with the happenings and the big issues. But what's new? The S&P's up at all-time highs again.
It's all good, mate. It's all good.
Every day seems to be up at an all-time high.
Crypto's at 85 zillion. Nvidia's been up 47 months in a row or something. What else we got? Gold is at all-time highs. Oil's beaching $90.
Basically, if you're not rich now, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, you're an idiot. Right? Don't buy an index fund when you can buy crypto, Nvidia, pile into all those biggies, and away you go.
So I'm an idiot.
Yeah, you're the idiot.
There you go. Well, it's the old story about poker. Right? You look around the room and you don't know who the patsy is. You're the patsy.
It's fascinating. I mean, I was reading something on Facebook or something last week or earlier this week, and the S&P in the last 10 months has put something like 100 trillion in market cap in 10 months.
Yeah, that'd probably be...
Which is the highest, the most it's ever put into the market, ever.
Yeah.
And you just think, all right, so that's about four times a month bigger than Apple every month. It's just the amount of money flowing into this thing, and it's insane. And where's it coming from?
Well, it's coming from the whole everywhere, because if you look at the economy, the US is growing at about 5 or 6% nominal, right? If you look at, who wants to invest in Europe? I mean, the joint's a shit show, and they've got a war on their doorstep, and they don't know what they're doing. They can't even agree to make bullets.
So they're moving it so it's coming from overseas into the US.
It'll be, and the Asian economies, what we talked about a while ago, and part of the problem for the trade distortion is the US is the biggest market in the world by a long shot. So there's a lot of countries, like China, right? China runs a huge trade surplus, right? They can't come to Australia and say, look, we want to buy your government bonds. It's like, mate, we've only got $3 billion worth. And you're running a trade surplus of 10 or 15 billion a month. There's only one place you can buy stuff. That's the US, right? Because it's the biggest liquid market. Asia's got problems at the moment. They're all bloody mercantilists, so they don't want inflows of foreign capital, right? So that counts out Asia. And this is why you're left with the United States, England, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand.
Because, the free markets.
Yeah, because they're the only ones that actually say, hey, you want to come buy a property? Sure, we don't mind, yeah. Whereas you try that in other places and they say no, but also too, who wants to buy a place in Europe?
That's actually, I hadn't thought of it that way. So obviously everything's going terribly overseas, so the oligarchs and the richies are picking up their cash and going, okay, where else can I put it?
Absolutely. Where can I get it if things go pear-shaped?
Yeah.
And a lot of Chinese money, and now we're starting to see an inflow of Vietnamese money into the Australian property market. And the reason why is because Vietnam is going to undergo a boom with the re-globalisation where they're moving out of China into Vietnam, right? So what will happen? The Vietnamese will get lots of money, and what will they do? They'll probably start buying Vietnamese property or Vietnamese stocks or something like that, and that's how you get the bubbles that you get throughout history.
So we should buy Vietnam.
What's the price? Tommy, it's always about the price. It's, I think, Jacob, you were saying there was someone on TikTok who commented a while ago about Nvidia or something, and said, you know, like, you guys, you know, you got to buy NVIDIA, it's going to change the world. And it's always the same old story. I'm not interested in changing the world. I'm interested in what the price is, right? I know Porsche's a really nice car, but I also know roughly what the value is. And if you come to me and say, Steve, this is a beautiful car, you can have it for $5 million, it's like, mate, that's ridiculous because it's not worth $5 million, right? And that's the point. The point is always about what's the price in relation to the value. And you were talking, Tom, just before we came in about quality.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, you want to buy Porsche and you'll pay more. Why? Well, because it's a quality car. Right? But you don't want to overpay even if it is still good. Right? So that's what we were sort of talking about, or that's what I was sort of saying with property investments and stocks. If you overpay, it doesn't matter if it's a really great company, right? Microsoft was a really great company, but it took 14 years to get back to the price you paid at the top of the dot-com bubble, right? That's the point. Most people don't last 14 years, right? You go, you know, you last 2 or 3 and you go, this thing's bloody a dud, you know, and you get rid of it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's actually a right decision, right? Because you've got 10 years now to invest the capital and maybe make more money.
Yeah, I mean, if you've been lucky enough to hold NVIDIA since 2015 or whatever, I don't even know what the return on that is from $3 a share to almost 1,000.
It's insane. I was going to say the exact same thing in the opposite manner, where I feel sorry for the people that are buying closer to the top, thinking
it's going to do another 3,000%.
It's going to change the world. It's going to go from 940 to 3,040 in the next 5 years.
As we said before, it may well do, but your chances are like, you know, again, this is where the history is valuable, where you can look back and say, okay, how many stocks have gone from, you know, a PE of 80 back to a PE of 15, and the E part, the earnings, has gone from, you know, as I said, I think a few weeks ago, we were talking about a PE of 90, right? And the average is 15. So the earnings have got to go up 6 times to justify that price at the PE of 90.
To make,
Right? And that's the thing. You have to sit down and say, oh, well, you know, NVIDIA is going to sell every single computer chip over the next 5 years throughout the globe, right? And that's where the numbers are really important, because you look at it and go, okay, that's not going to happen. But it doesn't mean you can't buy NVIDIA when it comes back down to 200 on a PE of 15.
Mm-hmm. Well, if the earnings went up 6 times, wouldn't the PE be 15?
Yes, but remember, that's saying that the price stays the same.
Yeah, okay.
Now, the argument is, okay, so this thing's already gone gangbusters on earnings projections. It reaches those earnings, and what do people do? Well, it shouldn't be at 900, it should be at 3,000, right? That's what I mean. The price always gets overblown or underdone. So that's where that psychology, where it's in where we talk about market cycles, where Seth Klarman said, you know, basically investing is human overreactions on the upside and the downside. And it really is, because prices don't ever really stay at their intrinsic value, right? Because when you're buying and selling, and this is why we're sort of trying to say to people, here's a plug, come and do our courses, because you've got to get to understand that market psychology, because you yourself get caught up in it, right? And you think, yeah, man, I knew NVIDIA was going to be a winner, and, you know, I bought it at $3, and then you start bullshitting about, you know, how you knew it was going to be, you know, a $300 stock. It's like, that's garbage, right? But that's the mindset that you get, and it's just human nature.
Yeah, you know, it's not just stocks; it's anything.
At some point,
of course.
At some point, it hits a price where people go, "Not paying that."
Well, it just runs out of momentum, and it gets to a point where, you know, Ben Graham said, and the stock market's firstly a voting machine and then a weighing machine. And what he means is the voting machine is NVIDIA at the moment, right? Hey, man, let's all get NVIDIA. In other words, you know, NVIDIA is the most beautiful woman on the screen, right? We're all voting for her. Then the next section is, once it gets to a point where you start saying, people start going, well, is she really the most beautiful woman up there, or, you know, the most handsome man? That's when they start weighing, right? And what he means by that is you start going, hang on, I need to look at the numbers here. And then you go, oh, well, hang on, this means NVIDIA's going to sell every computer chip in the world for the next 50 years. Well, that's not right. That's when you start getting you start sobering up, right, and going, I don't know about this.
Well, we've seen it with Apple a few times where the first time it doesn't reach its earnings projections, you have a bit of a wobble, and the second time it does it, the next one it's like bang.
Yep.
We have a cataclysmic waterfall, loses 50%, and everything starts to reset again.
Yeah. Well, this week, the US authorities have now put a lawsuit against Apple for monopolistic whatever that word is, practices. And that's
monopolyptic's a fun one.
Yeah, monopolistic. And so the point being, Jacob, that's a really important flag because they're going after Google, they're going after Apple, right? And what that's indicating is information technology's had a dream run for 10 years. Now the mean reversion starts, right? And it starts with the authorities saying, Apple, you got to start letting some people into your app store. Mm-hmm. And so what you see is the story of, Tim Cook's a genius and, Apple bliss and Apple that. No, mate, it's just a monopoly where they're holding out competition.
It's so interesting how they've done it. Like your standard monopoly would be you own the market, you buy things, bring it into the fold, and you grow your company. But what they've done is actually turn off the inlets to other companies allowing access to their to their tech.
To their app store.
So they've monopolized it without actually doing anything externally. It's all been internally. So now the government's saying, well, that's not on.
That's right.
You need to open the doors up and let more people use your technology and share more and things like that, which in turn will decrease the earnings because it can be made somewhere else or used somewhere else for cheaper.
Well, you can buy a Huawei phone for $7 and go, this is as good as my iPhone. And remember,
and can get all the same apps on it.
That's the point. See, in Australia, we had the problem of you couldn't take your telephone number if you went from Telstra to Optus, right? You had to stay with Telstra. Why? Man, everyone knows my number is blah, 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 right? So when the government said, no, now there's a new rule, people can take their telephone number wherever they want, that changed the dynamics of the market. And so the Americans would be equivalent of saying, I've got my Apple iPhone, right? No, I'm going to go and buy an Android phone. Okay. Well, at the moment, like you said, Jacob, you can't just put the SIM card in and go, bingo, there's all my apps and, it's the same phone, right? And that's what they're trying to do. Now, if you add, that's one side of Apple's business. Now, add on the other side that they're losing sales in China. They've got to move their stuff out of China. So you've got big capital expenditure coming up as they move to Vietnam and India and other places. You look at that and say the growth runway is really fairly sort of tenuous, right? And that's where you get that's where the rational bit comes in, right? That's when everybody stops going, well, Apple's slogan is think different, right? So this is where you go, yeah, I'm thinking different and I'm thinking you're not going to be as good as, everybody's saying you are.
The irony for me is that the execs and the bigwigs in office in the US are the same people that have made all their money in Apple and FANG stocks and now going, actually, we need to do something about this.
Yeah.
It just all starts from the top. It's just a big ruse.
Of course it is. Of course it is. This is where the CEO pay and the stock options and all that sort of stuff, that's what's made them rich. And that's where it goes back to the Clinton era, because the argument was, if we get the CEO to align his incentives to the shareholders, then that will be good for everybody. But the mistake they made was nobody was paying attention, and the CEOs were like, oh, well, I'll just issue myself 1 million stocks, right? I'll issue myself 1 million options, and I'll be able to buy them for $1, right? And the current share price is $5. So in other words, you go, right, well, he's already just paid himself $4 million. Then and they get the indicator which says, well, if you get the share price from $4 to $5, we'll give you another 500,000 options, right? So these guys are just getting mega rich, and they're getting mega rich from exercising their stock options. Right? That's why I say you've got to watch that stuff, because we often make this mistake of saying they must be rich because of their talent for stock picking. And then you go, no, basically they just charge 2 and 20 and they get rich out of, picking the video as, when it's $100 or something like that. That's why they all ride the momentum wave, right? Because that's the incentive structure for the way they get paid. They don't give a toss about your money. I mean, let's be honest. It's the way it works, right?
Capitalism at its finest, gentlemen.
Well, it's just the incentive structure. If you adjust those incentive structures and say, righto, then no, there's no more stock options. See, stock options were illegal. You couldn't do it.
Were they?
Yeah, companies couldn't buy back stock.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There was all those rules. But you see, they all got knocked off. And this is where the history is really important, because you go, oh, well, Steve, that's the way it's always been. It's like, no, that's not the way it's always been. There's actually alternatives where you say, no, you can't do stock buybacks. And you see what's driven the market, the US market, particularly over the last 10 years, the multiple, right, is stock buybacks. Because companies are looking at the market saying, we're making money hand over fist, right? Now, we've got all this money and we don't need to build a new factory because there's low demand, because we're not paying the workers enough, right? So what do we do with all this money? We'll buy back the stock. So what does that do?
Yeah, what's the benefit of that?
Right, it pushes the earnings up, right? Now, you imagine if you said there's 100 shares outstanding and it's $1, right? Now, we've got excess money, and we're going to buy back, we're announcing a stock buyback, and we're going to buy back 20 stocks, right? So there's not going to be 100 stocks, now there's going to be 80. Well, if you divide the earnings per share by 80 and not 100, that means the earnings are going to be not $1 a share, it might be, $1.15.
Out of the circulating supply.
Right?
Yeah.
So what happens then? The CEO says, I get bonus options because I took it from $1 to $1.15. He hasn't done anything. Now, the worst thing for the shareholder is then you go, well, hang on, he's going to exercise those 20 shares. Well, now you're back to 100. It's a trick. Right? It's a trick, but nobody wants to talk.
No one understands
legal
it,
manipulation.
Well, yeah.
No, let me tell you who understands it. Warren Buffett understands it, right? And he was the first to say all these stock options. Well, he wasn't the first, but he was saying, these stock options are bullshit, because you can't buy back 100,000 in stock a month, and then the other hand, you offer 100,000 stocks a month to the CEO and the executive team. It's neutral. But the people out there going, oh wow, they're doing a stock buyback. Oh cool, okay.
Price will go up.
Price will go up, right? Earnings will go up per share, right? And that's what happens.
There you go. Well, look, obviously in this one we're talking about the week that was March 18 to the 22nd. I know you kind of kicked off that newsletter, Steve, with most of the change that we experience is fairly slow, and I always like the boiling frog syndrome, where the frog's in the pot of water over the stove heating, but slow enough not to notice the incremental change in temperature until it's too late.
Yep.
So, is that kind of in reference to the fact that things are getting crazy? It's been a couple of years now where we're hearing all these people come out and go, we're going to be in a recession. We're in a recession. We look around, everything seems to be in a bubble, but we don't know when it's going to pop.
Yeah, it's about the way you look at the moment you've got, and for the past 6 or 12 months, the reason why we're arguing we're in a transition, which I'm not talking about 1 year, I'm talking about 5 or 10, is because when things change, if you look at it through the old way of doing things, then it doesn't make sense, right? Why have we got businesses going bad, but unemployment's not rising? Okay? Now, you look at that generally and go, well, that can't be right. Because what we're used to is saying, well, when businesses go bad, we get a recession and we get unemployment rises, right? Okay, makes complete sense. Now, let me put it to you another way. Okay, the government starts spending, US government starts spending 6 to 7% of GDP. Right? Now, what happens is some businesses that are inefficient and won't make the grade will then say, well, listen, we can't make enough money, so we're going to have to close. The staff of that business then go, generally you'd go, oh, well, they're going to be unemployed. But because there's a strong labour market and there's spending in, you know, for example, if I said, oh, well, the coffee shop's gone broke because they serve shithouse coffee and nobody liked it, right? And you go, oh, my God, those poor staff, they're out of work. Oh, no, they've just got a job down at the restaurant there because it's booming in pizza, right? So you look at the one part of it in the old paradigm going, oh, they must be all unemployed and this is terrible, where you look at it in the new paradigm and go, oh, well, no, they just walked in and got another job.
Well, you walk out and get in an Uber. You just start driving Uber or...
Well, yeah, but that's partially right in the sense of what I'm saying is they're going to leave a steady paying job to another steady paying job, right? The Uber thing's a little bit more contentious. You know, like you might earn $1,000 a week at the coffee shop and only 600 at Uber.
Yeah.
Well, that's not good.
Yeah.
But if you can walk into another coffee shop and they say, sure, start Monday and we'll give you $1,000, you go, cool, right? When you look at the statistics, you go, oh my God, there's a lot of businesses going broke. Well, there's going to be a real big boost in unemployment. And then Joe Biden says, no, we want everybody to build bullets and bombs. And they go, cool, great, I'm going to go and build bullets and bombs. And they make lots of money. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's where the old paradigm is looking at it going, these numbers don't make sense. But when you look at it in a transition phase and say, no, they're just getting other jobs.
These are dying out and these are ramping up.
Exactly. And that's what we're talking about with, you know, value versus growth. Right? Growth is coming to an end and value's rising. Large caps are going to fall and small caps are going to do well.
We're getting like a sectoral change.
Exactly. Hard assets. We put in a thing on Friday, I think, about the chart of the week, where, you know, hard assets have not been the place to be in the US because you could build the stuff in China, right? That's where all the factories were. Right now,
with the deglobalization stuff,
hard assets are coming back to the US because the US has said, we want to build semiconductor factories right here, right? We want to build infrastructure right here, right? Or in Vietnam or other places because we're not friends with China. And so that's where you look at it again. It's a sort of mean reversion, if I can put it to you that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, what's a few examples of hard assets?
Well, things like real estate. Shipbuilding. Steel building, right?
Right.
All of those old industries.
Train lines.
Yeah, all of those old industries where you said, no, mate, you don't build a factory here, you build it in China.
Yep. Produce it for a fraction of the cost. Don't have to pay the workers as much.
Don't have to
make
pay
more
the work.
money on it all.
You don't have to build a big road, right? The government will build a road for you. Railway, don't need a railway. You can do it by trucks over there. You know, all of that sort of stuff. And so we've been focused on the tech stuff, right? The intangible stuff. Facebook, right? Google.
Data.
That sort of stuff. Exactly. 100%.
Which we're not saying is not going anywhere. So that's not just going to disappear tomorrow.
Of course.
Or even over the next 10 years. It's always going to be valuable, but it's just about what we're talking about is the out of favour things that are now becoming more in favour due to the transition.
Exactly. Right? You've got to look at it differently now because, you know, like we've talked about a couple of stocks, right, in the newsletter. Now, they're in old, quote, industries. One's a refiner and the other one is a steel builder, and there's only one in Australia, so you can work that out. Now, they're up about 30 or 40%, right? That's what I mean. That's hard asset stuff, right? And the reason why is because if we're now in a state of a hostile economy globally with Russia and China and Iran and those countries, so you can't say, oh, well, it's all right, we get our steel from China, right? So we don't need blue scope steel. This is what we did with cars. We don't need to build cars anymore. We can get them from everywhere else. Okay, but imagine, and I'm exaggerating, but imagine if everybody said, we're not selling cars to Australia anymore. we'd be going, holy Jesus, we can't get any cars, right? That's not an insignificant way to think about it, because that's why America said to the Chinese, you're not getting our high-end semiconductors. We're going to deny you the latest cutting-edge technology, right? And the Chinese are responding. The Americans are now saying, we're going to delete TikTok. That's why I say this stuff is flying under the radar, because everybody's talking about NVIDIA, at $85 million in crypto and oil and gold, and everything's going gangbusters. That's why I'm sort of saying you got to have a look at the underlying stuff, because that's where, everything's going up, but it's not going to continue to do that forever. At some point, it's going to start to, run down.
I'll tell you what I find really difficult to navigate is with an election coming up in the US, what is being said due to the election coming up and what is actually real.
Everything.
You know what I mean? We're going to delete TikTok, and that's just one example. That's a valid argument on national security grounds. Yeah. Right? See, because and again, this is why it's so important, because I put it in the video, I think, in the week that was, where I said, governments will use whatever excuse they can to do what they want to do, right? Now, why do we want to get rid of TikTok? Okay, because it's a national security issue. Yeah, they're selling the data to the community, to the Chinese.
Well, they get all the data,
Party.
right?
Yeah.
The Chinese get all the data. Now, you wouldn't mind if the Chinese were democratic and wanted to play ball, right? But that's not what the Chinese Communist Party is about. And so it's taken us a while to get round to the point to say, hey, listen, this is not fair game anymore. So that's where governments will say, we get all our rare earth processing done in China. Righto, well, that's got to stop. Okay, so what happens? The Australian government gives Arafura up in Northern Territory, $830 million, right, to build a rare earth refinery. And that's partly owned by Gina Reinhardt. Right? The Americans...
She needs that. She definitely needs that.
She's short of a quid, mate.
So just de-risking. We can't... Well, sorry... Trying to not be so reliant on everyone else.
Well, because the game's changed, Tom.
Yeah.
You see, now we're back to hostilities against China and Russia. So you can't say, well, that's okay, they'll still sell us stuff. Because if we rely on them and they say, actually, we're not going to sell you any more rare earth processing, we go, we need those for the bombs.
Yeah.
Or guided laser systems or a whole raft of stuff. That's why there's a really big push about processing, you see, and that's why when we say, "Oh, it's all right, we'll build a factory here," and we go, actually, all the parts for the factory we get from China, and it's like, oh, okay, well, gee, we better ask if China. So it's equivalent of China saying, "Yeah, we're going to give you a factory, and then you're not going to buy our stuff." Why would I give it to you? Yeah. Right. This is the delicate.
Yeah.
This is the balance, right?
Wow. Another thing this week is the RBA. Announced a bit of relief to mortgage holders.
Yes.
Well, maybe not relief, but at least not more pain for now.
Yeah.
This is a hot topic, right? This is what everyone in Australia wants to know right now. What's happening with the rates? Are we going to be paying more out?
Ask the RBA. Don't know. But they didn't cut rates, but they didn't raise them. Raise them.
Yeah. Well, the argument is that the rate cuts will be coming soon. And it's a pretty hard argument. I think there's two things going on. At the macro level, everybody was saying, they're going to cut rates and, they're going to be 6 rate cuts, right? They're going to go back to 2%. I don't think that's the case. And the reason why is because they don't goddamn well that there's going to be a property explosion if they do that. Right, because people are just
another one.
Well, 100%. Yeah, and it's true.
But that's the other thing, though, right? The speculation's going to come out. Even if they cut it a little bit, they'll go, "Sweet, we're on track. We're going to get 2%."
Yes and no. Yes and no. I think that's the belief. And again, because why? Well, that's what you do, right? No. That's the old paradigm. The new paradigm is
we caused a lot of problems doing that.
So let's just keep them at say 3.5, right? And in the recent discussion, and I won't get bogged down in it, but what we're moving to is governments around the world incentivising to build certain stuff, right? So you come to me, Tom, I'm the government, right? And this is why it's really important, because you say, hey, I'm going to go to the bank and I'm going to borrow $2 million and I'm going to buy Jacob's property, right? Well, that does bugger all. Does nothing, right? You're not building anything. All you're doing is giving him more money for his existing product. Well, that's, stupid for a start, but that's for another day. But my point being that the government says, listen, mate, if Tom comes to you and says he wants $2 million, we don't want you lending to Tom. What we want you to do is lend to Steve, because Steve has said that he wants to build a widget factory and we want a widget factory. And in actual fact, what we'll do is...
Steve's widget factory.
Steve's widget factory. What we'll do is we'll give Steve a tax break to build a widget factory. And we'll guarantee Steve's loan that you give him. Right? So what I'm saying is, in other words, you're in these environments, your opportunities to invest become a little bit more constricted, but it's a little bit invisible in the sense of just saying, well, no, the government won't let us lend mortgages, to a stupid rate that they have done. But the government, and this is what I'm saying about incentives, the government has incentivised us to lend to business at a discount rate because they will guarantee the loan. Right? France and Germany have guaranteed like 80% of business loans.
But is that a thing here?
No, not much, because we're the idiots who go, free markets. But you see what I mean?
Yeah.
We said last week, listen, let's dump up 830,000 for a refinery, 830 million to Australia's richest person. Now, most of the time, you think back, you'd be going, well, that's bullshit. But you see, we've got a national agenda now.
Yeah, we do need that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what do? Well, you have to pay someone to build it.
Yeah.
Right? And you've got to, you don't want to give 830 million to a bunch of newbies. Oh, there's this new lot, Steve, Tom, Jacob mining. Yeah, give them the money. They look like they know what they're doing.
I wouldn't even need the whole 830. I probably would have done it for 800.
There you go.
$800.
Yep.
That's why Gina Reinhardt's got about 100 billion and you got like $1. Right? You got to play the game. And that's another part of it, right? What you do is you look to your most experienced people and give them the money, because they're the ones that will, if you make the incentive there, they will comply. Right? It's just greed. It's just saying, listen, Tom, if you can buy Jacob's property or you can build a widget factory, and by the way, mate, you'll probably do pretty well because we're going to buy all your widgets. You'd be going, yeah, well, bugger the property. I'm going to buy I'm going to build a widget factory. That's all that's going on, right? But the important part is governments are doing that because as a response to the hostilities, to COVID, to climate change, and to demographics, right? And children, that's the 4 Cs. Right, that's the way we're moving. And when you look at it in the old way, you go, it just doesn't make sense. Why would the government suddenly be giving $800 million to build a bloody rare earth factory in Northern Territory? Because that's what we need to build bombs and guns and stuff. Right?
All I know is that there's a lot of people at the minute that are looking to get into the market, first-time homeowners, and they're waiting for these rates to come down a little bit. And they'll be saving money and waiting for the next few years to get there.
But then the price will go up.
But then the price will end up going up, right? So that's just the battle that we're in.
Absolutely.
But that's just FOMO stuff.
Yeah, well, that's what happens in bull markets.
I know. But that's what I mean. It generally ends badly, right? But people, when as I've talked about, I've been in a bubble, and you cannot be reasoned out of it. Mm. Because you weren't reasoned into it in the first place.
It's because we're the frog in the pot.
Well, yeah, but the thing is there's 100 frogs in the pot. So you're looking around going, everybody else is all right.
A lot of frogs.
I'm feeling a bit hot. You feeling a bit hot? No, I'm good. Oh, okay. Must be me.
Next minute we're all frog's legs.
We're all on Dillapreach in Paris.
All right, well, let's wrap it up there. On that note, before we wrap up, the 4 Cs or the new paradigm that we're talking about a lot, that's actually on the website now. So if you head to the website, it's a free downloadable copy called the 4 Cs. You just pop your email address in and download it from there.
Riveting reading,
it's
if
riveting
I say
reading.
so myself, since I wrote it.
If you have any questions, of course, let us know. But until then, we might bid thee farewell.
Adios,
See you
amigos.
next time. Cheers.
Thank you.
Stay up to date on our socials. Just search for Total Money Management on Instagram and TikTok. For your free investor personality assessment, go to totalmoneymanagement.com.au. And, as always, remember, we don't provide financial advice.